Very good. So we shall start. Hello, everyone. Hi, Alex, and good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for joining our session, Parallels Remote Application Server at E2E. It's always great. It feels great to present at E2E every year, more than once actually. And even if this is a different format, it's always great to find time to get together and share experiences and get market updates as well. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Christian Akulina. I am the Director of Program Management at Parallels Remote Application Server. And I am very excited today to actually share with you what's new, the latest and greatest actually from the last version available that we have on Parallels Remote Application Server. We just entered public technical preview and we expect to hit general availability later on in a month's time. So we'll of course talk a lot about that. However, before that, we have prepared a short agenda for you. So we'll start with a basic introduction about Parallels and an overview of Parallels Remote Application Server, or RAS in short. We'll obviously tackle the what's new capabilities in Remote Application Server, and we do have some demos lined up. So it's granted in this session, there's a lot of tier, there's a lot of content. We will find time for some demos, but we have another session then tomorrow, and then the focus will actually be demos over there. We also have a short Q&A session. So as Alex mentioned before, use the Discord and we can tackle questions as we go along, and also in that session over there. Okay, so let's get this show on the road. So who is Parallels? Who we are? Parallels has been around for multiple decades actually, and 2 years ago acquired by Corel Corporation. As you can see here, we have global presence with strategically located offices, and from Parallels product portfolio point of view, we have over 7 million individuals using Parallels software and over 50,000 businesses. And this is also thanks to our strong channel partner framework that we have across the globe. When I talk about the Parallels solution portfolio, what put Parallels on the map is, of course, the Parallels desktop for Mac, which is the ability to run Windows, Mac, Windows applications and desktops on Mac devices. Exactly a month ago, actually, we have released a unique offering with the partnership with Google as well, which is Parallels Desktop for Chromebook Enterprise. So similarly, you are now able to run natively those Windows applications and desktops on your Chromebook devices, tackled ideally for those high-end Chromebook devices. And in fact, in this 1 month, we have seen a huge interest on this technology. We also have the Parallels Access, so one-to-one connection from any device to your desktop, as well as specifically targeted for mobile usage. And of course, the star of the show for today is Parallels Remote Application Server, which is a remote application delivery and VDI. I'm sure we are all aware and familiar with this in the end user computing space. We also have Parallels Mac Management for Microsoft SCCM, which enables you to manage Mac computers similarly to how you manage your Windows devices into your organization. And finally, as well, we have Parallels Toolbox, both for Windows and Mac. So this is a great collection of powerful tools that users use day to day, say download of videos or screen sharing or screen capturing, all of these conveniently located on your Windows and Mac for the end users. So as we can see, there are various products here. However, there is a common factor, a common denominator, and that is targeting to empower the users to achieve more productivity, targeted for any type of users and knowledge users as well. From a remote application server point of view, we build our product roadmap on these 5 key pillars. And this is as well what we have seen in the market from market requirements, especially as well during this particular year. So definitely end users experience, I'm sure we all agree, is very, very important. And without that, the entire project fails. So of course, our aim is to make sure that we provide that great users experience across any devices. I was happy to hear as well in the previous session, Chris mentioned, the bring your own device and choose your own device. We have seen that more and more, especially nowadays, of course. So the idea that user all of a sudden needs to use his device, not maybe the corporate owned device, to gain access, secure access to their corporate resources is very important. But it's not just about the access, right? It's about that productivity. So you need to use the capabilities of the device itself, like pinch, zoom, swipe, if we're talking about mobile devices, along with Parallels native capabilities, of zooming in, for example, of making sure that you are utilizing that device properly. Maybe it's harder to use certain applications in a small screen device. So you would need to have those applications or some tools to help those users to achieve more. All right, okay. Yeah, and security, when I talk about data security, of course, it's very important. I mentioned where data resides, right? So from a business point of view, IT agility is very, very important. So we try to keep remote application server as flexible as possible. So we do support various hypervisors, Microsoft Hyper-V, VMware vCenter, and SXI, hyper-converged solutions like Nutanix AHV, and also scale computing, HPE. And also in 17.1 last December, we have released direct integration with Azure as a hypervisor. So we have direct API, so you can provision, and auto scale your VDI workload on Azure. We have more capabilities, of course, in RAS 18, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But what's very important as well throughout remote application server and also other products and under the Parallels portfolio is that we try to keep it as simple as possible to deploy and manage. And if you did not have the experience yet on remote application server, I urge you to try it out. We do offer trials, free trials for 30 days for 50 concurrent users. Try it out for yourself and see how really it is very easy to actually deploy. And that would inevitably reduce the TCO, right? So it's not just about the license cost itself, which we provide all the functionality in the same license, but also the time it takes, to deploy, to manage, to train, even to get acquainted, for business to get acquainted with the solution. Moving forward and focusing on the core of this session, it is the what's new, right? So what do we have for remote application server version 18? And here we have quite a busy slide. I'm showing you the slide here for us to refer to it later on as well in terms of new functionality. We've heard a lot about Windows Virtual Desktop, especially throughout this last year, and we've been working closely with Microsoft to bring this to market. We are going to provide this unified Windows Virtual Desktop integration. So that brings unified admin experience about on the RAS console side to deploy, to manage Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and also on the end user side to access Windows Virtual Desktop resources or other resources alike from the same if you may, App Store, which is the Parallels client. Similarly, we also have integration with Microsoft's own FSLogix profile containers. So from RAS console, you are able to configure FSLogix agent deployments and also configure the settings of FSLogix. So something that maybe we're used to using registries or GPOs, we have a dedicated UI specifically for that to make it as easy as possible to get on board with FSLogix profile containers, which is great as well for us because even from a license eligibility standpoint, with RD calls available, which are also required for RD session hosts, for example, our customers can instantly make use of this technology. We talked about even in other sessions how it is important to optimize your images. When I talk about images, golden image, master image template, what we call them within a remote application server, and there are various tools that allow you to do so. But what we did here is that we have added this capability built in the product. So as soon as you add an RD session host, a VDI, or even any Windows Virtual Desktop workload, we are able to automatically optimize these images. And the administrator can choose between automatic or manual, to choose amongst over 130 different built-in optimizations, or even they can bring their own scripts. So if customers already have their own scripts available to optimize their images, they can just bring it on. And when the server or workload host is joined to a RAS environment, then that is optimized accordingly. Session management is super important for administrators, so we wanted to invest quite a lot of time there. We created our own metrics, what we call UX Evaluator. That's User Experience Evaluator. So it gives the quantitative measurement for administrator to try to understand the user's experience. We're going to talk about that in a bit as well. And also, we have added over 25 new session counters. Again, the idea is to give that transparent view for the administrator as much as possible. For SMEs, maybe smaller deployments, we have customers as well asking us to make better use of the local storage. Now, as you know, in the EOC, there was always this discussion: should I deploy my VDIs or DSH on central storage, on local storage? Well, in the past with remote application server, you could use central storage. Local, you could use it, but it was quite tedious to deploy various templates. In this release, then you are able to have just one template. That template can be deployed on these local storages, and then you could have clones, guest VMs running on local storage. Management portal. So today we do have a desktop console. It's been there from day one, but slowly and surely we are moving to a web-based management portal. So we introduced the help desk tool that provides session management, web-based in the last major version, in version 17. We are building on that and providing now the full deployment for standard remote application server use cases. So we talk about remote desktop session host deployments, publishing agents like the controllers or the brokers, and also gateways there, and also be able to publish resources from such session hosts. So those are what define RAS 18, Parallels RAS 18. However, there's a lot of other new capabilities providing value that we are mentioning here, and I want to mention the accelerated file retrieval in particular, which we'll discuss as well. And we have a short demo on that. When you're using remote apps and trying to retrieve files from the local device, usually because we are using RDP, we're adding virtual channels to that, the experience is not the best. So we invested time there and efforts to make sure that the file and folder enumeration is much faster, providing that local use and feed of when using remote apps and local files and folders. On the trials experience, we continue to make it as simple as possible. Just checkbox activate the trial, and that's it. A trial is already activated out of the box. And also, we did invest in offline license activation improvements, so it's more like of a self-service product. Now, it's true, this is not as popular, having an offline deployment. However, we have organization where complete offline, even when using subscription, is required. We also added on HTML5 bookmarks, so that's like a direct app address. So we added a parameter, so even you can use specific RAS applications, RAS hosted applications from third-party portals, not just from the HTML5 client portal. And we also added auto login, because we wanted to improve the user experience over there while keeping as well in line with security measurements. In fact, this is something that we implemented similar to the Azure portal itself. Okay, we are seeing HTML5 usage more and more. In fact, that's the second biggest client in terms of usability, following the Parallels client for Windows. And since I'm talking about HTML5, it's good to mention there's a lot of performance improvements over there, and in general scalability across all clients and server side. Now we're looking at over 2,000 VDI sessions and 5,000 RD session hosts in the same site. So that's very important, to continue our journey in providing more and more to our customers. We also had quite an older feature, the CPU load balance management. So if your users on the same session host have different processes, and one of the processes, for example, misbehaves, we are able to limit change priorities of those processes accordingly. So other applications running in the same sessions are not affected, or maybe other users running on the same host. So we tweaked that feature itself. We provided its own UI, and in fact, when we entered private public preview already from September, we had very good feedback on that. So even applications that are misbehaving, we are managing to protect that user experience. HALB, for you that do not know, stands for High Availability Load Balancer, and that is a load balancer, a virtual appliance that is also provided as part of the license that you can deploy, import to your hypervisors, to cloud, and will able to forward and load balance the traffic to the front-facing secure client gateways. Okay, and this time we invested as well a lot of time there with allowing multiple HLBs to reside in the same site. So great for those environments that maybe want to distribute their traffic, maybe different offices, different geolocated offices, or internal and external traffic, providing full load balancing to the gateways. Another great feature that I like to talk about is as well SAML authentication. This is we introduced this relatively it was last December, so it's a relatively new feature, but we still have quite a lot of customers and interest on this particular functionality, and we decided to extend the capabilities of SAML authentication to other clients. So now you can start SAML authentication directly from the Parallels clients and not just through the HTML5 client portal, but also through Windows, through Mac, through mobile devices as well for that single sign-on. And this is especially true for enterprises looking at offloading the identity management to other identity providers. And we're seeing here Azure as IDP as mostly used, followed by Okta and Ping as well. From a security standpoint, we have as well added capabilities to add administrator ability to add custom security verification methods. So the administrator can decide to add, for example, the option to call, to SMS, to push notifications available on the Parallels client side. So when the users do try to connect to RAS environment, they're presented with all these different options if they're using Radius, and then we are able to customize that experience, along, of course, with having the ability to have HA on Radius servers. So, of course, Parallels RAS does not provide Radius itself, but it integrates with various MFAs, and Radius is one of them, along with Google Authenticator or any other time-based OTP as well. In 17 as well, we have released a session pre-launch. So that is AI-based session pre-launch as one of the options there using machine learning. So we look at users' habits, and based on how they are accessing, when they are accessing the published resource, we are able to pre-launch that session before that manual user intervention. And now we extended that throughout all the other clients, and as well added some functionality to exclude certain applications. Maybe customers would want to focus on some specific line of business applications. On the productivity point of view as well, in 13.4 iPadOS, Apple released Bluetooth mouse and trackpad support, so that obviously will be supporting that. And from a third-party load balancer, we are also supporting this in an optimized manner. So even if customers today, before I mentioned HALBs, high available load balancers, right, that are provided within the RAS license. If customers are using third-party load balancers, fine. We want customers to build on their investment rather than throw that away. And what we're doing here is we're distributing the UDP packets as well to different gateways so that actual full UDP can be delivered when using third-party load balancers. There's other, of course, capabilities here, including remote effects USB redirection policy that can be set without requiring that GPO, because we'll do that directly ourselves. This is great for many service providers that provide their services to unmanaged workstations. Right, we're also showing RAS policies, the version of the policy that's applying on the clients, adding Dutch language to our Dutch community here. And finally, as well, as you are aware, Apple's announcement in shipping Big Sur on both Intel and Apple Silicon, we took that on board, of course, and from all the Parallels products actually, and also the Parallels client for Mac are supporting Big Sur on M1 chips as well. So moving forward, targeting, the unified Windows Virtual Desktop integration. So our message in the market and our position has always been the same with Microsoft, that Parallels RAS is able to enhance that native delivery when we talk about RDS. So it was logical for us to also employ that same logical thought to Windows Virtual Desktop, and we did that by completely integrating from a remote application server side, from the management side, but also on the end user side. And we're going to see how that is done. So what Parallels RAS provides you with Windows Virtual Desktop is that simplicity of deployment of Windows Virtual Desktop. So we're talking about wizard-based driven ability to do workspaces, host pools, application groups. All this can be done from the console, but not just that. Even if you do have other deployments, maybe on-prem or other clouds, all can be seen and all can be administered from a single pane of glass. And this is where the unified part comes in. Now, from an end user side, they don't really care where that resource is coming from. So what we wanted to do is that we show the Windows Virtual Desktop resources and other resources alike in the same Parallels client. So that's the biggest part of it. Then, of course, because of the flexibility that we support, because of the fact that now we're supporting those hybrid and multi-cloud approaches, we're also thinking of legacy deployments. Maybe because Parallels just also supports RD session hosts, or actually terminal servers from 2008. Even if there are older applications that are there, we are able to show those and support those in the same environment. All the Parallels technology themselves, like built-in auto-scaling, like the management of user sessions and processes like RAS, universal printing and scanning, all of this can plug on top of that native Windows virtual desktop experience. In addition, I talked about the AI-based session pre-launch, machine learning for those ultra-fast logons, accelerated file redirection, image optimization, FSLogix. All of these can come in well together as one complete package. This is just a high-level overview of just an example of a deployment. Here we chose a hybrid deployment. We have the Parallels client on the left-hand side and also Windows Virtual Desktop client. So what happens is that Parallels client will communicate with the secure client gateways or any load balancer in front of the gateways to start the connection. If there are resources that are published already for that user that are coming from Windows Virtual Desktop, the Parallels client will then communicate with the Windows Virtual Desktop service and also read the feed and download the RDP file. Now, under the hood, then we are calling the Windows Virtual Desktop client, and transparently, then we are showing that either application or desktop. From the backend side, we are configuring the entire Windows Virtual Desktop environment through REST APIs. And on those session workloads, multi-session or single session, one would also find both the WVD agent and also Parallels' own agents for the complete management. Again, this is just an example that is also found in the Microsoft and the Parallels joint solution brief available here. What we've seen as well from our customer requests is, and I'm sure we mentioned this earlier today as well, is that interest for that Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session. So that's a very good use case, along with the extended Windows 7 security updates that now are available that can be done through Parallels Remote Application Server when deploying it through Windows Virtual Desktop. Our customers that are already using Parallels RAS pointing directly to Microsoft Azure can also be interested in such desktop as a service. Of course, customers that are running hybrid or multi-cloud in mind, or that want to also maintain legacy applications, that they can make use of both Windows Virtual Desktop and Parallels RAS as a solution. Here are just some screenshots that we're trying to make it as simple as possible, always wizard-driven approaches, to publish resources accordingly. FSLogix profile containers, this is taken directly from the last update from the console, where one can deploy FSLogix agent centrally to all the session workloads. Those could be RD session host, VDI, or Windows Virtual Desktop. You can choose the location type if it's SMB, or we can also use Cloud Cache for HA and resiliency. Choose the path where that profile disk should remain, and the disk format, of course. And once we are ready from those, we can also go to additional settings. And anything that can be configured from an FSLogix side has been presented over here easily in this UI. So of course, we don't need to go through the need of profile containers, but the fact that it does reduce that application compatibility issues, and we are simplifying that management, is something that we've heard from the market that is quite interesting. Especially, of course, couple this with Windows Virtual Desktop and Microsoft Office 365 experience. Moving forward, the UX Evaluator. So this is an indicative quantitative measure for the administrators to understand what is user experience like. So when the user just calls in and say, but my system is sluggish or my system is slow, the administrator sometimes has difficulty understanding what does that actually mean. So what we did here is that from the Parallels client itself, we send a trigger, to a command through that session host. Actually, that session host receives that command, does the compute, sends the reply back, and we calculate the time in between. And that is mimicking the time a user does something on the remote app, on the published application, and that published application provides an update, a corresponding response. So if this value is high, of course, that means that the user experience is not that great. Of course, all of this can be monitored from the RAS console directly. So apart from the UX evaluator, as I mentioned, there's a ton of new session details. And the idea is trying to shift now from having an active admin role to more of a proactive role. So the administrator can actually monitor more closely and see if there's any user experience degradation. Here I'm showing all the session details. Of course, the new ones marked with label new. Going quickly through them, we have connection modes, how the client connected, if it's through gateway or directly through to the session host itself. Authentication type, MFA provider in use, connection flow, quite interesting here. So if you have a gateway, maybe in the forwarding gateway or a load balancer, you would know exactly the components, the infrastructure components that connection pass through for that user to arrive to that particular session host. Logon duration and logon duration breakdown. So how long did it take for user to log on, right? This is also affecting users' experience. It's not nice, of course, for user to wait, I don't know, 5 minutes every time they need to log on. We need to understand what constituted to that breakdown. Of course, something that Control App can also provide in a lot of detail. And here we are showing that breakdown directly in our Rust console, understanding if it's a group policy thing, if it's the profile itself, desktop load time, and others as well. What user profile are you currently using? We're showing here either FSLogix, user profile disks, because today we already support user profile disks. We're just allowing customers to move away from user profile disk to FSLogix, or if using, other types of profile management solution, roaming profiles or third-party profile management solutions. These are shown over there. Apart from UX evaluators we talked about, then we have the type of connection, the quality, of connection, the latency, the network latency. As a protocol, display protocol, we use RDP with additional virtual channels, of course, but here we're more interested on on the transport protocol. So if it's a TCP or UDP connection, so great for administrator to understand how are their users connecting, if there are issues with users experience. Bandwidth availability and bandwidth usage are also available there. Reconnects, excluding the graceful ones. So you would know as an administrator how many reconnects did my user experience because of, say, network issues or resource limitations. We also have last reconnect. So you can, as you know, you can roam your session amongst different devices. So last reconnects are tied to the last device itself in the same session, because you could have quite a long session that it will never log off. And disconnect reason, very interesting. Why there was a reconnect? It wasn't a graceful reconnect. What was the reason? So we're looking at presenting the actual reason itself in the console. Incoming and outgoing data, so that's upload and download, and bandwidth usage, as I mentioned. And finally, on the client side, we're showing the client OS and the version, and also the Parallels client version in use. All this because there are a lot of columns. Of course, now in the session details, we can set warning and critical levels for better administration. And actually, if you double click on a particular session, I'm showing here what the administrator would see. So in the same page, one can see all these details that I'm talking about, and these can be easily exported to a CSV, not just for that session, but any session that you have running over there. The image optimization, again, the great thing about it is that it is built in, right? And it is very flexible. So we have these 130 optimizations there. We divided these into 11 categories, as we see on the right-hand side. Okay, and the idea is, of course, to increase that user density and user experience and more efficient use of resources. Okay, of course, from a day-to-day, this means that we are aiming for faster moving for customers from a proof of concept to pilot to production, of course, making sure that the underlying OS is optimized. And this applies to our session host VDI and Windows Visual Desktops as well. If there are custom scripts there, as I mentioned, one can choose that custom script. If, of course, you want to use automatic method of optimization, you change that to manual, and then you can go through each category and enable or disable any services that we provide here or options according to your needs. For Microsoft Hyper-V, we have we're looking at providing that local storage distribution. So we get the template and we distribute that template on the local disks so that we can create local clones as well. So rather than relying on a shared storage, maybe more cost-effective or simpler method, one way also use and maximize the usage of the local storage as well. And how we're doing this can be done sequentially, one host after the other that you choose. We call these target hosts, or even simultaneously. Once the template is actually copied to these machines, then cloning is started. And the same process repeats if you're going to update the template itself. On the management portal, we have evolved the RAS17 helpdesk tool into a web-based management portal. And in this release, you have the ability to deploy session hosts, publishing agents, gateway, SSL certificate management, and publish resources. The idea was to focus on those smaller basic environments so that those customers can make complete use of the management portal on its own. And that includes, apart from publishing, also security, MFA, that's the TOTP, some site settings, universal printing and scanning, license management, and very easily access to help and support. However, what we did is also with mobile usage in mind. So a couple of screenshots here. You see, of course, a new modern look for a portal itself, where one could look at infrastructure, see how the infrastructure is built and the session hosts available. They can interact, see the resources, and they can look at the sessions and manage the sessions themselves. When it comes to publishing resources, something that we allow to keep as well is that wizard-driven approach. You add and you go through a set of steps, to complete deployment. Some application settings that we see here, including filtering based on user, gateway, IP addresses, locations, so on and so forth. As I mentioned, that wizard-driven approach, I can go back and change publishing from or sites or application type. Okay, even FSLogix has been included in the management portal itself. And the mobile experience is also as important. So administrators today, they can use any device as well. You're just using the web. They can easily manage the entire RAS infrastructure. Finally, before going into some demos, actually, I wanted to also talk about the accelerated file retrieval. We did some tests, and actually I have some demos on this. And in the past, we felt customers' pain. We have actually issues, we noted issues during proof of concepts as well, how slow it was to enumerate the files and folders when you're using drive redirection. So what we did is two things. We reorganized the communication between the endpoint device and the remote app itself. Okay, so to make that more efficient, get all the files in one go, essentially not multiple calls for the same file. And also we created a kernel-based driver to provide caching mechanism. So this, of course, in our tests, this is showing just some standard test here of 5,000 files in a LAN environment. The first time with remote application server without caching or with standard RTP, it took 12 seconds. The second time it took around 10 seconds. When we used Parallels RAS18 with caching on, the first time it took 2 seconds, and because we had caching, that took even less than 1 second. So we've seen great improvement over here. So if we do not have any questions now, we can go to quick demos, and I'll start off with Windows Virtual Desktop. Alex, do we have any questions?
Yeah, just 1 second.
All right. We have a Q&A session later on, but we can tackle these even now if we want.
So Christian, there is a question. Please share the link of automated image optimization. I forwarded that question to you.
Okay, all right, yeah. So right. I think the interest there is to understand what are the optimizations that are available right out of the box.
Well, I guess the person just wants to have the yeah. So the answer yes. Yeah, that was the question.
So. All right, okay. All right, yeah. All right, if there's not more for now. Let's go to have just a quick overview. I won't, there's a video recording because I wanted to be quite fast, not create the entire hosts and host pool right in this session. I remind you, tomorrow we have another session and we'll tackle this step by step. So this is the Rust console. As we can see, it's the traditional console. We have some published resources, we have a desktop and the published application. And from the Paras client, here we're using Paras client for Windows, we do a connection through Rust gateway, of course, and we have a list of published resources, and one can launch the resources. So there's nothing new, of course, over there. And we have the published desktop, and similarly as well, we can launch the published seamlessly, that published application as well. Now, going back to the Rust console, now it's time to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop. So first of all, we download the WVD agent and bootloader so that we can distribute that to a new host that we'll be creating. We need to do a connection similarly to Rust version 17. You connect, you provide your tenant ID, subscription ID, so that you can communicate with Microsoft Azure in this case. We're providing credentials because of to deploy our Parallels Rust agents onto these machines that can be as well coming from Azure Marketplace. So we definitely need to provide credentials over here. We are using the app registrations. So after providing tenant ID and subscription ID, we also provide app ID and secret key. Let me accelerate this just a bit. And we are finished from what we call the provider. Now, next step is creating the workspace, or maybe selecting an existing workspace. So we're looking at the workspaces available on Microsoft Azure, depending on the location as well. In this case, we're going to go ahead and create a new workspace. And we're going to choose a resource group, or even create maybe a resource group. You can create one from the console itself, and then a location where this is deployed for the metadata. Now, after the workspace, it's time for the host pool. So we create a new host pool, or again, similarly, we do select existing host pool. Just a note, of course, you don't need to follow the wizard one after the other. In fact, you have also provider and workspace there as combo boxes, so one can choose different providers and workspaces for this host pool. Then here we have the host pool settings, and host pool can be set either based on a templated machine or standalone. So by standalone, we mean that you can pick any running virtual machine, and then you will add that particular virtual machine to your host pool. And this is what we're doing in this example. We have other examples that we're going to see as well tomorrow using templated host pools. So after you assign the user as well, so this would from the Azure, if we had to look at the Azure portal, it will do the assignment on the desktop application group itself. And now we have deployed, and now we see as well the Windows Virtual Desktop subcategory. Due to time, I'm going to accelerate this, move this a bit forward. We're deploying the agents, initializing the machine, and we're looking at the Azure portal as well to confirm that the changes are being, apologies for that, that the changes are being carried out. Once the deployment, once the infrastructure, I would say the servers are created, the session hosts are created. In this case, we're using Windows 10 multi-session as well. We go ahead and do publishing. We're publishing a desktop from that desktop application group. And now if you go back to the client, and the client again, now we're going to have a new desktop, and that is actually coming from Windows Virtual Desktop. So the difference here is that the Parallels client for Windows is, as you're seeing, installing at that point Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop client and launching it through the Windows Virtual Desktop itself client. So we are going through the entire infrastructure of Windows Virtual Desktop. Similarly, then we also show something similar on the application side. Publishing applications, and then once the application is provided, we do the application process, publishing process, and also present that to the administrator, to the end user. Sorry. In the meantime, I am connecting here to my live setup as well. And this is remote application server console. And just quickly, because I'm conscious of time, we do have the session host, for example, and I wanted to show you some new features where these can be configured, like the FSLogix, as we talked about. I had the UPDs already configured in the past, so customers would not lose this functionality. They can choose FSLogix, choose the cloud cache, SMB location, additional settings, inclusion and exclusions, both for users and folders. And also quite interesting is this advanced tab over here. Okay, so one can do all the changes done in an easy manner from the UI itself. Similarly, if you look at the optimizations, and we had a question on that before, and all of these can be inherited from the groups or from the sites, I can go ahead, enable optimization. I can choose manual, and then choose what type of optimizations I want to change. For example, there's some which are relating to Windows Defender, ATP, so I could add some exclusions for certain applications. Some services, Windows service that might not be needed. One can also configure these, add and remove any of these, error reporting, insider services. It depends on what you require, really. Visual effects, for example, by default, there's a custom, we're removing certain items. So again, are you targeting better performance, better user experience? What's your latency? How are users going to connect to your session host, so on and so forth. Okay, this is quite interesting as well, that if I choose the custom scripting here, then I can bring on board custom scripts already done. So once that server joins the RAS environment, then I will be able to deploy those optimizations. Another one that I wanted to show is the management portal, of course, the look and feel of it. So what we see on the background is the older RAS console, and here it's the management console. Of course, by time we'll be moving all the functionality to this management portal. So one would see the infrastructure here, and again, centrally deploy all the required agents, and then interact with the session hosts and see active sessions, for example, and get access to the server properties, and also the configuration of the profiles, for example, like we've seen from the traditional desktop console. Quite interesting over there. I really like the publishing part as well, where one can simply add applications, desktops, anything from here. If I choose applications, I'll choose from which site and to publish from which server or group of servers, and the type of application. If it's already installed, I can easily retrieve those applications and make them available, as simple as that. And of course, we continue building on the session management itself. All right, very good. Last item I had on the agenda, if we go back to the demos here on the accelerated file retrieval. What I have on the left-hand side is with drive redirection cache off. That's the new feature in RAS 18, or we can also say it's native RDP experience. It is a WAN environment with around 160 milliseconds between the client and the server. And what I'm trying to do is get access to the C users folder, local folder. And as you can see on the left-hand side, it took around 5 minutes, 42 seconds. Of course, we're not going to wait for that. But on the right-hand side, we're seeing with drive cache on. It took only 56 seconds to actually retrieve the files. And if you look closely how the files are retrieved, they're retrieved in blocks, like a complete chunk altogether, rather than, you know, one by one and multiple reads. In reality, when I was actually testing this, many of the times on the left-hand side, I ended up with not responding window. I'm sure that's something maybe that you have experienced that with in the past from your side. So there's, of course, very noticeable differences there. The idea is, of course, to make sure that users' experience is as if they are using those applications locally. So what are the next steps? Of course, Parse RAS 18 public technical preview is available. So you can go to parse.com/RAS or as well scan this barcode over here, and that will take you directly there. We also have the technical preview in the marketplace, in Azure Marketplace. So there's what we do over there. Apart from technical preview, we also have a GA version in the marketplace. What we do there is that as soon as the image is deployed, we automatically install a remote application server all in one on the same machine to make it even easier to get started, which is great for trialing, right? Tomorrow, as I mentioned, we have another session. It will be more focused on demos. And last announcement I want to make is that we run a very successful VIPP program. We actually launched VIPP around 5 to 6 years ago now, and we have a great team of around 14 VIPP members. You can check these out. We have applications already coming in if for interested parties wanted to join VIPP 2021, and these applications, the applications are open until end of this month. So if you are interested, to join VIPP, if you think that you could help out, with your ideas with the, through Parallels products and also the community at large, want to hear from you, please feel free to send your requests, and then we'll be happy, of course, to talk later.